Welcome to TheBotDog Reviews, movie reviews and more, the channel for all movie lovers. Today we are here to talk about one of the great American film classics, Dances with Wolves. Directed by Kevin Costner, this movie is an emotional story about friendship, culture, and respect. Spoiler alert! Before we continue, we would like to make a spoiler alert. If you haven't watched the movie yet and don't want to have your viewing experience spoiled, we suggest that you watch the movie before continuing with this video. Now, if you have already watched the movie or don't mind spoilers, let's begin. During the Civil War in Tennessee, Lieutenant John J. Dunbar from the Union Army, played by Kevin Costner, learns that his leg is badly hurt and needs to be amputated. He sees other soldiers with amputated legs and doesn't want that for himself. So, he takes a horse and rides into the middle of the fighting, hoping to die. This surprises everyone and makes his army fight harder. They win the battle and the doctor is able to save Dunbar's leg. The commander sees him as a hero and gives him Cisco, the horse who carried him in battle, and lets him choose where he wants to go next. Dunbar wants to see the American frontier before it changes due to people moving from the east, so he asks to be transferred there. He meets Major Fambrough, who sees him as a king and Dunbar as a knight. Dunbar is then sent to his new post with a man named Timmons. Right after Dunbar leaves with Timmons, Major Fambrough kills himself with a gun. Dunbar and Timmons arrive at the empty Fort Sedgwick after a beautiful trip, carrying fresh supplies. They find the fort deserted except for a wolf that Dunbar later becomes friends with and calls Two Socks because of the wolf's front legs coloring. While waiting for reinforcements, Dunbar starts organizing the messy fort that was left behind by its previous occupants. Sadly, Timmons is killed by Pawnee Indians and scalped on his way back. This also prevents Union officers from knowing about Dunbar's assignment to the post, leaving him isolated. Dunbar doesn't know the full situation and its effects, and he writes in his journal about how strange it is that no other soldiers come to the post. Dunbar meets the Sioux tribe when their medicine man, Kicking Bird, finds the deserted fort and tries to take Cisco. Dunbar scares him off and is confronted by Wind in his hair, who says he's not afraid of white men. When they try to take Cisco, the horse throws off the thief. Dunbar and Kicking Bird try to communicate but have trouble because of the language barrier. To connect with the tribe, Dunbar goes out dressed in his army uniform. On the way, he saves Stands with a Fist, who was trying to kill herself. Kicking Bird and Wind in his hair later visit Dunbar at the fort and they share their first word when Dunbar asks where to find buffalo. Dunbar becomes friends with the Sioux and is accepted into the tribe after he helps them find a herd of buffalo they need for food, materials, and clothes. Dunbar helps protect the Sioux settlement from a raid by the Pawnee tribe by giving them extra guns and bullets that he had hidden near the fort. He becomes a full member of the tribe and is given the name Dances with Wolves after playing with his wolf friend, Two Socks. He falls in love with Stands with a Fist even though her husband had recently died in battle, and they get married with the blessing of Kicking Bird, who acts as her father. Dunbar starts living more with the tribe than at the fort, and even Wind in his hair, who was once his rival, accepts him as a friend. Dunbar's peaceful life is disrupted when he warns Kicking Bird that more white people will continue to come and take over their land. They talk to the chief, 10 Bears, who shows them a conquistador's helmet that has been in his family for a long time. The chief decides to move the village to its winter camp. As they pack up, Dunbar realizes that his journal, left at the empty fort, could lead people to find the tribe. He goes back to Fort Sedgwick to get the journal, but finds it has been taken over by the army. They mistake him for an Indian and kill his horse, Cisco, and capture Dunbar. Dunbar is seen as a deserter by the army when they realize he's white, which is punishable by death. He tries to show his orders for being at Fort Sedgwick, but his journal has been taken by Spivey. Dunbar says his name is Dances with Wolves in the Sioux language after being beaten. The army takes him to Fort Hayes to be executed. On the way, they shoot at Two Socks, Dunbar's wolf friend, who refuses to leave him. Two Socks gets hurt and dies, and Dunbar is hit in the head again before the army continues on. Dunbar is rescued by the Sioux warriors, led by Wind in his hair, after they attack the men who were taking him to his execution. They find his journal in a stream and return it to him. Dunbar knows that as a deserter and on the run from the army, he could bring danger to the tribe. He decides to leave even though his Sioux friends don't want him to go, and his wife decides to come with him. He wants to speak to anyone who will listen about his experiences with the Sioux. Wind in his hair says goodbye to Dances with Wolves and stands with a fist as they leave the tribe's camp. He says that they will always be friends. Later, a group of soldiers and scouts show up to the tribe's former camp, but they have already moved. Dunbar is saved from execution when his journal proves his assignment to Fort Sedgwick, but he is kicked out of the army with dishonor. He returns to the Sioux tribe and warns them about the arrival of white settlers, but they have already moved to a new camp. Dunbar can't go back to the white world and doesn't want to leave the tribe, so he decides to stay and live with the Sioux for the rest of his life. He changes his name to Dances with Wolves. Hey everyone, have you seen Dances with Wolves? Let us know your thoughts on the movie in the comments. Also, if you enjoy epic and emotional stories, don't forget to follow us here on the channel. Until next time. TheBotDog Reviews, your ultimate destination for movie reviews and more. Leave your like, subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss new videos.